Hi, it's Gary. Welcome to today's video. When we think about productivity, we often think about what we can be changing to simplify things. And normally we're just looking at things that we can change in what we're doing. But one key area where we can simplify and get massive gains is by using automated systems. Now, in the past, you needed to learn complex looking software. You needed to learn programming languages to try and take advantage of this. But over the last few years, the way of automating tasks, that's got so much easier. Now, I live in the Apple ecosystem. I use Mac, I use iPhones, I use my iPad. And Apple, it's been spending a lot of time building out a system utility called Shortcuts. It's a simple to use tool that lets you automate a lot of things that you can do on your Apple device. But it's not just for Apple utilities. Shortcuts, it's able to tap into web services and it can read and update them. It's also able to tap into apps that you may have installed on your phone. If the developer has included the code needed to link to Shortcuts, that will appear and you can automate it through Shortcuts. Let's switch over to my Mac. We're going to use the Mac for today's demo, but anything we create, it gets synced between all three devices onto the phones and also onto the iPad. What we're going to do is we're going to build a simple automation together. Now, this automation, it's a very stupid example, but it's just to show you some things that you can do with it. The example I've decided to pick, what you're going to do is collect a list of drinks that people would like in a meeting. Now remember, it's just an example to show how you can build them. This is not a full run through of everything you can use Shortcuts for. If you would like me to do some deeper dives, please let me know because I love using Shortcuts. Welcome to the computer. So I've got open here the Shortcuts editor. Now, this is showing you all the shortcuts I have. As you can see, I've built loads of them. Some of them do difficult things, most of them very, very simple. But what we're going to do is focus on creating a new one. So I'm going to go over here to the plus button and click on that. So this takes me to the shortcut editor. First thing I always do is give it a name. So I'm going to call this drinks order. Helps if I can type. It's a drinks, not a dinks. There we go. Hit return, so that's now there. What we're going to do is to start to build up the shortcut. So over here on the left, you can see I've got categories and apps. This is where I can see all the available actions, and it tries to guess some initial actions that I may want to use. There's a search box here. I'm going to go in there and type repeat, because what I want to do is I want to be able to go through and collect details from a number of people. So I'm going to say, I'm going to repeat. Double click that. That now moves it over. And it says it's going to repeat one time. Well, yeah, that's fine if I've only got one person. I could change that to be 2 if I've got 2 people. But that means going in and editing it every time. Ideally, what I want to be able to do is select the number of people. So I'm going to go back over here. I can either search or go through all this list. What I'm going to do is I want to get some input from the user. So I'm going to say, well, is there an input thing? So I'm going to type input and now it filters. And up here where we've got scripting, the first one asked for input. If we go to that little eye next to it, it tells you displays a dialog prompting the user to enter a piece of information. That's what I want. So I'm going to get that and I'm going to drag it up to the top. So the first action now is going to ask for something. Now it's saying here ask for text. But if I click on that, these are the options. I actually want to ask for a number. So I select a number. I give it a prompt. I'm going to say number of attendees. So when I run this, that's a message it's going to give me. If I click show more, these are some different options, and depending on the type of input, these do change. I don't want to have decimal numbers. it's always going to be an integer. I don't want to have negative numbers. I can't have -2 attendees, so I might as well not allow that option. I then come back here to the repeat, and this repeat 2 times now isn't really what I want. So I right click on it and it gives me this little menu. I'm going to click on select variable, and then I can see coming out of my ask for number, there's something there called provided input. I'm going to click on that. So this says it's now going to repeat for provided input. Provided input though doesn't really add much, does it? So if I click on this, it gives me a little pop-up and I can give it a variable name. So I'm going to say number of attendees. So I know that number of attendees ties back to this box. So now I've got this repeat. And what I want to do is I like to test things as I'm going along. So I want to test that this works. I want to display a message to a user. So I'm going to say alert. This pops up a message every time it's triggered. And I'm going to drag show alert into this repeat. So every time I go around this repeat loop, it's just going to say, do you want to continue? Let's run this. So we've got the little arrow there. Click on that. Number of attendees, that's what we've told it to ask us for. I'm going to say 3. I'm going to hit done. We now go through that repeat loop. So we've got, do you want to continue? 1, 2, 3, and then it's all done. So we now know that we can ask for a number of attendees and we can start to build up a list based on them. Next thing we want to do is we want to get the name of the person and the drink that they want. To do that, well, we need to get some input, don't we? So we know we've got that input we need to look for. So again, we go down, ask for input. I'm going to drag that over and now delete the alert. That alert adds no more value to us. It was only there for testing. This time, I do want to ask for text because I want a name and a drink. And what I'm going to put here is I'm going to prompt for the name and the order. Now let's call that name and drink. That's nice, keeps it simple. If I click the show more, as I said earlier, we've now got some different options. Default answer, we're not going to use it in here, but that's the one that would be there if you just hit done straight away. So that's collecting the details for that person. But then what I also want to do is I want to add that to an order list. How I'm going to do this? I'm going to add it to a variable. The idea with variables, these are things you can set and then call later on in the shortcut if you need it. Believe it or not, it's called variable. So if I search for variable, I can see there's a whole load of different options. Keyboard Maestro, that's an app I've installed, has ability to get and set variables. Toolbox Pro is another app. But I want the system one, which is in this scripting. So we've got 3 options. Get variable. Well, that does what it says. It gets the content of the variable. Set variable. Let's click on the eye. Sets a value of a specified variable to the input. Yeah, could be what we're after. But we've also got add to variable. And this appends the action's input to the specified variable. Well, we want to create a list. So this is actually what we want to do. Each time we loop through this, we want to add a new entry to the list. So I'm going to say add to variable. So let's drag it over to below that ask for input. What it does now, it knows that we're below this ask for input, so it assumes that's going to be the input we want. Let's rename this. So this is, I'm just going to call this person name. Person name. Helps if I can type, doesn't it? There we go. So we want to add person name to a variable name. What we need to do is tell it the name of the variable that we want to add it to. And we're going to add this to a variable called drink order. Can be any name you want. I've decided to use drink order. Try and keep the names so you can really understand what the purpose of it is. We then need to be able to check at the end what we've got. So we add another alert. This time I'm putting it after the repeat because We want to make sure we've gone through everything. I'm going to delete that message this time. Right click and insert a variable. The variable I want to insert is drink order. Let's run this, see what happens. So number of attendees, 3. So we're going to say Betty, she wants coffee. Hit done. Wilma, she wants tea. And Fred, he wants banana milkshake. He has to be different, doesn't he? And then we show the alert, which shows us that variable, and here's our list of person and drink. Let's take this another step forward. What we're going to say is, right, we've got a predetermined list of drinks because we know most people want one of 3 drinks, and then we may have the odd person like Fred who wants something different. So what we're going to do is add a menu. Now, there are different ways of doing this. I think a menu for what we're doing is a nice simple way to do it. We want to give them a menu of options. So let's search for menu. Again, Toolbox Pro, I'm not bothered with that. That's a specific app I use. I want to use the standard stuff. Well, I've got here, choose from menu. If I click the eye, presents a menu and runs different actions based on which item was chosen. Yeah, that sounds like what I want. So what I'm going to now do is take that choose from menu. I'm going to drag it to below where I'm asking for a person's name. Choose from menu with, so the prompt, what drink? Again, helps if I can type, doesn't it? Then here I've got menu options. It defaults to 2 with these default values. But what I want to do is change this. So I want coffee. I want tea. I want water, which is another standard option. And then I'm going to say other, for those like Fred who want something different. This set now has given me my 4 options. The version of shortcuts I'm using at the moment does have a few bugs in it. This is because I'm using a beta version of macOS. If I close out of that and go back in, it's now showing the text correctly how I want it. So what I'm going to do is I want to now build up. Right, somebody's asked for coffee. So like we've got here, I want an add variable. So I'm going to say a variable in my search box and add to variable. I'm going to drag that under coffee. So add input. What are we going to set this to? Well, what we really need to do is set it to a piece of text. So we want to set it to some text. Can I search for text? Yep. Oh, look, we've got a text option. Click on this, passes the specified text to the next action. This is what we want. So I'm going to drag this in and now build up this text. So the format we want the name of the person, don't we? Well, we've already got that because we've got the person name. See why I named these variables as I did? It's easy to see. So I put the person name, I'm going to put a space, a dash, and then coffee. Because that person wants coffee. Now when I'm thinking about it, I don't actually need this add to variable yet, so I'm going to delete that. Click the little X. Helps if I can spell coffee. My spelling today is awful. Right, I'm now going to copy this, so I'm going to go click on text. I'm now going to right click here and select copy. I'm going to go down to where it says T. I'm going to right click and I'm going to say paste below. So it copies that in. I'll do the same with water. And I'm going to do the same with other. Now what I can do is say, right, coffee. Yep, that should append coffee. I'm going to change this one to say tea. This one to say water. There's other ways you can do this. This is just one. So the top 3 are done. They're nice and easy. But what we want to do now is look at this other. Because what we're saying is they want something that isn't on there. So we really need to be able to capture that. So what I want is to ask, well, what drink do they want? We know how to do that now. We want input. So we find input and we go to ask for input and drop that in the top of the other. We want to ask for text and what drink would they like. So we've now captured the name of the drink. What I'm going to do is where I copied in that text box before, we want to get rid of the word coffee. We're going to right click, insert variable, and then select variable. Now I may need to scroll down a bit because the screen does jump around a bit. So here's the question I asked and it's got that provided input. I'm going to click on that. Provided input, not useful at all. Click on it and give it a name. Let's call it the requested drink. So now we're building up this string. What we need to do next is we need to add that detail to our drink order. So we've got here that variable that we'll add into, but we don't want to just set the person name. If we do that, all we're going to do is get the name of the person. We want to delete that, so I'm going to highlight it and then select clear. Right click on the input, select variable. What we want to do is we want to say, right, here's the end of the menu. We actually want the result of that because that's this text box. So we click on menu result. Again, menu result doesn't really help us. Let's give that a name. So this is drink selection. We've been adding to drink order, so we don't need to change that alert. Let's run this and see what happens. Number of attendees, 3. So we've got name and drink. That's not what we want. I'm going to hit cancel. I'm going to go back up to where we've got the input asking for name. And I'm going to change that text to just say name, because that's what we want now. Now let's run it and see what we get. 3. Name. So we've got Wilma. And she's having tea. We've got Betty. And she's going to have coffee. And we've got Fred. He wants something else. So we got other. What drink would they like? Banana milkshake. And now our output, we've got Wilma tea, Betty coffee, and Fred banana milkshake. We're getting closer, aren't we? So this is all well and done, but it's not really helping us too much because we're just getting a list here. We can't do anything. What I want to do is I really want this to go to something else. Now, I'm going to send this to something called drafts. So I'm going to fetch drafts up. This is a third-party app. It's not an app that Apple has built, but it does have shortcut support. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an entry in here. So let's go back to my shortcut. I want drinks order. And go down to the bottom. So we've gone through. We don't want this alert now. What we want to do is go for drafts. So in my search apps, I can do 2 things. I can type the word drafts in there, drafts, and that shows me everything that it thinks is associated with that. But what we're going to do this time, I'm going to go to apps. This shows you all the apps that you can use shortcuts with. And I'm going to go down and find drafts there. And it also gives me the list. Well, what I want to do, I want to create a draft. Well, we've got an action here, create draft. And click on the I, captures text as a new draft. That's what I want it to do. So what I'm going to do is just double click on this. Double clicking actually creates an entry at the bottom. Let me just move this window up slightly. There we go. So we've got create draft in inbox. I want to get rid of this alert. I don't need it anymore. So I'm going to just delete that. Well, create a draft in the inbox, that's fine, but what are we going to put in it? Well, let's see what the options are. Click on show more. So here we've got a number of options. What I'm going to do is delete that where it says repeat results, because it says here content. I'm going to right click and select variable, and I want to show the drink order. Tags, we're not going to worry about that. all these other options, they're internal to drafts. So let's run this now, and we should see a draft get created. I'm just going to move this over so we can hopefully see drafts there on the screen as well. Let's run this. Number of attendees, 3. Name, well, we've got Wilma with her coffee. We've got Betty with her tea. And we've got Fred, who wants milkshake. Hit done. Now you can see it's popped up this. This is telling you that it's created a draft. It gets in the way though, doesn't it? I'm just going to hit done on that. But if we go over to drafts, we can see here it's created a draft, and that's all the input that I put in. That's my list of drinks. Just going to delete that. So I'm going to move that to trash. I'm going to go back. Now, we got that message, didn't we, from Shortcuts saying that created a draft. We don't want that. That got in the way. It added no value. In our create draft action, the very bottom, it says show when run, and there's a tick. And there's various options there. But what essentially this is this says, when you run this action, give me a pop-up to say you've run it. I don't want that, so I'm just going to take that tick out. So the tick's gone. Let's go and run it now and see what we get. So we go run. Number of attendees is 3. We've got, let's do Fred first this time. We've got Fred with his banana milkshake. We've got Wilma with her coffee, and we've got Betty, and she's having tea. I hit done, and if you watch over here on the right, you should see that draft appear. There it is. Go and select that. Fred banana milkshake, Wilma coffee, Betty tea. And that's it. That's all there is to building a shortcut. Yes, as I've said in the intro, not really useful for much of this shortcut, but hopefully it gives you some ideas of what you can be doing with them. So our example, it's just one way you can build an automated workflow with very little programming knowledge. I've got loads of different shortcuts in my library. They range from very simple ones where there's maybe 2 or 3 actions, up to those where they've got 400-500 actions in one of my shortcuts. They all help me to reduce the amount of work I have to do. One of my big automations, I actually use it to manage my media. It's got about 450 actions in it. What it does, it reads data from Notion, which is where I plan my media output, and then lets me perform various actions. So I can select one menu option, and it will go away, create some tasks in my task management system. It will create some entries in drafts. It will create some folders on my hard drive, and it will also populate those folders with some templates. Now, this used to take me about 20 minutes. I select one menu option, it goes away, and within 30 seconds, everything's done. So it's not interrupting my workflow, and I'm saving 20 minutes per video. Given at the moment I'm doing 5 videos a week, that's a big saving in time for me. To summarise, use automations for things that you do regularly. Use the power of the system. Get it to go away and do that task for you. Yes, there's a bit of time up front to develop it, but unless you're doing something where it will only save you, say, 30 seconds of time, after the first couple of weeks, you're going to be starting to get that time back. Apple Shortcuts. This provides a very simple but powerful set of tools to let you go ahead and automate it. There are other tools out there. If you'd like me to cover them, please drop me a comment, let me know. Would you like me to do a series where we focus on building shortcuts together? I've quite enjoyed doing this video because I've got to play with shortcuts as we've been doing it. So it's one thing I think would be interesting. Is there something you'd like me to help you automate? Can't guarantee that I'd be able to do it, but we'll look at what it is and we'll work together if we can to get that shortcut running for you. Please drop a comment down below. What other topics would you like me to cover in this automation realm? There's just so much there that I could do loads of videos on it. Please hit the thumbs up button. Every time you like, every time you comment, just helps with the YouTube algorithm. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel so that you can get new videos as I release them. I'll talk to you again soon.